Dina Brown's got your cover, sis. She can show you another way. Tune in weekly to your radio, and she'll have it feeling like there's a shift. Hey, yeah. Oh, no, no. The breakthrough is almost here. No. Talk to Dr. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, she knows what she's doing. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, transform your life. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, she knows what she's doing. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, transform your life.
Welcome to Walking Through Glass, the podcast with your host, Dr. Dina C. Brown. I am uber excited this morning to have a conscious conversation with one dynamic diva. And her name happens to start with D too. But in a moment, I am so going to let her tell you all about who she is and what she does and how she's going to give you those really nuggets to help you with your particular walk. Because again, as we're walking through glass as women, we don't have to walk alone. And once we really have that real concrete understanding, our life begins to shift. But let me just tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about actually today. In our conscious conversation, we are going to talk about that balancing act that we have to have. And I entitled the episode Balancing Act, Purpose, Profession, and Parenting. And I did that for a very specific reason. Number one, our purpose. We spend many, many years thinking we know what our purpose is, or trying to find our purpose, paying people for our purpose, getting rerouted on our purpose walk. And then we kind of narrow ourselves and inch ourselves on this particular journey into a profession. And we're just like, okay, this is what I think I really want to do. Said think, but this is what I want to do. And so you're saying like, wow, this is what I dreamed about as a little girl and all that great things. And then the most magical thing happens. You become a parent. And everything that you've done up until such a time as now is like rerouted. And so with that, I have a very special guest with us today. And she is, a spoiler alert, she is the host of the Dr. Mom Show. And I am going to let her introduce herself so we can really get started about really, how do we do that? How do we create that balancing act? So go ahead, Delene, tell them all about you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Delene Musielak. Shout out to everybody whose name starts with a D, Dr. Dina, Dr. Delene. There's something special about that crew.
Yes.
Well, first, I just want to say, Dr. Dina, thank you so much for this opportunity. You're amazing. Dr. Dina is amazing. So I feel so honored to be on this show to share my experience and help anybody who's listening. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was originally born in Guyana, South America. A lot of people don't know where that country is. What put it on the map was the Jim Jones massacre. If you remember this, like cult with the Kool-Aid, and they drank the Kool-Aid. So that's what put my little country on the map. But it is a beautiful country. It houses some of the Amazon rainforest. And in addition, it has the longest single drop waterfalls called Kaichor Falls. So it is a beautiful country. So if you ever get the opportunity to go, you should go. And most recently, oil has been discovered in that country. So if you're looking for an investment, invest in Guyana.
I just want to go. And I've been to multiple places. I haven't been to Guyana.
Yeah, and what's great?
I mean, I'm familiar with it because I watch a lot of cricket. But but I realized that for the Caribbean and the South, South American portion, and Trinidad and Belize. I hadn't been to Guyana. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And what is nice is Guyana is the only English speaking country in South America. So you don't even have to try to learn another language. And that's one reason why we're considered part of the West Indies. So we get grouped in with Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago and stuff. So we got amazing music. Oh, yeah, with some reggae and soca calypso. And then we got some good food. So you have to check it out at some point.
Is there going to be like a Dr. Mom retreat there? I'm hearing
let's do it. That's such a good idea.
Okay, can we do that? Can we like seriously take the group?
I love it.
I call it a selfish mommy movement. And I said, I'm going to launch the selfish mommy movement, and where we are just going to love on ourselves for ourselves.
Yes.
And we're just going to spend that moment thinking about us.
Some me time.
It really is. And I said, I'm thinking that it definitely needs to be a Dr. Mom retreat. We're going to have
it. We're going to do
it here first.
That's right.
Definitely get on the list if you think you want to be interested or you want to go, because it's going to be nothing but pure pleasure.
That's right. Mommy massages included.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So after I know we're like, obviously you can tell we're overworked. So when I was born in Guyana, I'm so thankful because I was born into a Christian home. Both of my parents are pastors. So, sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me. But I think overall that's a blessing in disguise. So again, I feel blessed to be raised in a Christian home, and I feel my parents did a great job with my sister and I. But my parents ultimately migrated to the United States. I was 6 at that time. And it was really because in order for my sister and I to get a better education, because you all know, and Guyana is a third world country. A lot of times those countries don't have enough finances for a great education. So that's why my parents ultimately moved. And my dad continued to pioneer his church. His church is located in New York currently, Queens, New York.
Uh-oh.
And New York. And so my parents and my sister are living in New York. But I, of course, moved around when I was smaller. So being a doctor was my backup plan. I initially wanted to be a pro tennis player.
Wow.
And then hopefully my kids will grow up, because I love tennis, love. Initially, I fell in love with it because of the outfits. I was like, look at those outfits. They're so cute.
You're right.
Girl, the other day Serena was playing. I was like, I love her outfit. I just want to walk around in that outfit.
Well, time is not up.
That's true. But so just a little side story with that. It was just too expensive at that point. My parents gave up everything, and it was just too expensive for them at that time to take tennis lessons, because we all know if you have kids, when your kids get involved in sports, you have to pay for everything. And what was so ironic though was we used to play, and there was a coach at school, and he would tell my parents that I have an amazing serve.
Wow.
And he said, you should get her out to competitions, because that's where the scouts are. But again, my parents couldn't afford it. But you never know what could have happened. I could have gone out, played tennis, become a druggie or something. God had better plans for me. So
okay, yeah.
So being a doctor was my backup. But no, when I was younger, I just enjoyed helping people, especially my grandma, my mom's mom. She probably had the biggest role in me deciding what I wanted to do, because grandma was, your typical patient, diabetic, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Ultimately, she ended up having a stroke. But I really enjoyed just helping her and serving her, and just doing that for her. I felt that's where my heart was, that I just wanted to serve people. And even when I was younger, my parents and my grandparents always had missionaries, and missionaries, now that I think back, always commented on what a servant's heart I had.
Wow.
And I just really enjoy helping people. It just, it just fills me with happiness when people just say thank you, like thank you for taking time out, thank you for explaining this to me, thank you for helping me know what's going on with me. So that's been great. So fast forward, after we moved, we initially lived in the South. We lived in North Carolina. I was cute. I was a little brown girl with my little Southern accent. My mom was always like, "Oh, I wish you kept that little Southern accent." So I had my little Southern accent when I was little. But then I continued to pursue being in medicine. And, it's funny how a lot of times the enemy tries to dissuade you from your heart and what you feel, because just the other day I was talking to another physician and we were just talking about how people can say such discouraging things, but yet it makes you stronger and it makes you more resilient. And I remember in high school, my guidance counselor, and I did well in high school, I was like a straight A student, and he told me, "You're not good enough to apply for medical. I don't know why you're thinking about medical school. I don't know why you're thinking that you want to be a doctor." He said that. And I was just like, what? I didn't know what else I was supposed to do. I was studying hard, trying my best. So I went on, I did college, applied for med school, went to med school, and then here came my residency. So when I did my training for residency, I always knew I wanted to be a pediatrician. I love, love, love kids. And that probably stemmed from me teaching Sunday school when I was younger, because kids are so much fun. Kids always give you hugs and kisses. I mean, they're just amazing to be around. Even when kids are sick, the majority of the time, they're still running around like crazy little ones. So
Yeah.
it's nice to be around them because I feel they just make you happy. But when I did my medical school, when I did my rotations, I enjoyed my internal medicine rotation, which is, middle-aged people, older people, because again, I think it kind of reminded me of my grandmother. And ultimately, I went on to doing my training for both internal medicine and pediatrics. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for doing both, but I was just like glutton for punishment. And I said, I want to do both. So ultimately, I am currently dual boarded in internal medicine and pediatrics. So I get to see everyone. So I call, my little motto is from the cradle to the grave, or from the womb to the tomb, is what I like to say.
Hopefully there's some delay between those times.
Be exactly. Well, that's my job, is to try to extend that time.
To relay that process.
So God definitely worked that out. And while in medical school, that's where I met my husband. Funny story is, he asked me out in medical school and I was like, I'm not getting distracted. No way. I came here to study. But he wooed his way into my heart, and we ultimately started to date. And we knew each other for 4 years, and he proposed to me at the end of medical school. So and looking back, I don't think I would ever find somebody as good as him. He's a good man, a good dad, a good husband. He's also a physician. He's a surgeon, and he's just a good person. So I feel very blessed to have somebody like that. So with time going on, again, I finished up my training, and even in my training, again, I got so far, but one of the program directors told me, "You're not going to make it." I don't even know where all this was coming from. And I think part of it was just because I didn't do my training at that school. So he told me I wasn't going to make it, but my class, it was 4 of us in my class. And when I was done, I was the only one who took both of my board exams for internal medicine and pediatrics and passed both of them on the first try.
Okay.
And I was like,
yes.
drop the mic.
Now, I have a question,
yes,
because this is so prevalent in our lives. And when I say our lives, I'm speaking particularly to women, and then definitely women of color, where we're performing, we are showing up, we are in the midst of operating in our calling and our purpose and doing so very well. Yet there always seems to be a naysayer. There always tends to be someone,
Mm-hmm.
and the sad part is someone in authority or position telling us that we're not enough, that we
Yes.
can't make it, that we don't fit, or that we should try something else that might be a little easier. And when you were sharing that story, it hit home for me, because when I was in high school and I went through the International Baccalaureate program, I don't know if you're familiar with IB.
I have heard. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so when you do an international baccalaureate program, that means that you're doing a collegiate level program. And if you graduate with an IB diploma, is what we call it, you literally can go to any college in the world, because any student in the world that's in IB is taking the same coursework. And why that was so critical for those of us in the United States is because many schools overseas that had a more rigorous curriculum, they said our American high schools and schools did not do, children's service and train them, and they weren't as academically strong. So hence you had honors classes and you had IB. So IB leveled the playing field. So having a little background on that, going through that particular program, I remember it was time, and I didn't do straight A's like you. I did programs, but along the journey, it's like I didn't always feel like I wanted to be smart.
Mm.
I knew I was smart. I
Yeah.
just didn't feel like I wanted to be, but I did the programs because I didn't have a choice. They wouldn't let me do other programs because I always scored really high. I always performed really well. My mom would say that, but I do remember deciding that I was going to go to college, and I went to San Diego State. I wanted to be a corporate attorney at the time. And I remember my guidance counselor, after me going through this international baccalaureate program, and I remember spending 4 years of rigorous programming being told, are you sure you want to go to like college? Wouldn't you probably want, a lot of kids in our community, whenever they go to junior college, you think it's going to be too hard for you?
Mm.
I was like, whoa. And
Yeah.
so can you imagine an impressionable 18, young girl? But here's the thing. And like what you said, there's something about certain of us, maybe it's that name of D, or maybe even that was all we have, is that when someone says that to me, then any and everything in me wells up that, oh, no, no, no.
Yes.
Let me show you how I'm going to
That's
work
right.
this. But here's the part that I'm realizing now as an adult, and I don't know if you experience this at all, is that I call it those phantom limbs, those residual things that were said and imparted in my subconscious and that's buried beneath, that's part of my psychological DNA, as I would call it, come up. Even now, especially now that I have a child, that I'm a parent, and that either I know that how I pour in what I say to my child really matters, but also when I'm questioning, when I'm going to take something or do something of challenge, I hear those voices
Yeah.
in my head, and now they sound more like my voice instead of those people from before, because I've already gone so far. But sometimes there's just that other little catalytic piece in there that it still makes me remember that little girl,
Yeah.
that 18-year-old, and having it, no matter what I did, that it wasn't enough. That I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand the why part of it. And that's not for me. What I realize, I don't need to understand the why because I know the who. But what is it that makes women like us say, not on my watch, you're not going to keep me in that box?
Well, I think part of it, just in general, is women. I think women are very strong. I think women are very, very strong. If you just step back and look at what we go through as far as delivering a baby, I mean, scientific research has shown that God has made us to deliver a baby that a male would never survive the delivery of a baby. And you just think of a mom who has a child who stays up hours, doesn't get sleep, but yet functions and does everything that she would have done even before she had a newborn baby. In addition
Mm.
to, women who work, and even, I give credit to stay-at-home moms too, because that sometimes is even harder than going to work because
Yes, look at that
you're
job. You just stay at home mom.
because at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, I was working all day and what happened? So I feel just as women in general, we have very a strong mentality, and I feel it's almost like we're meant to survive. Or you talk about that psychological DNA, which I love that description, because I feel like we were deliberately made with a psychological DNA to survive and to make sure our family survives. Like you hear these stories about moms picking up cars because of adrenaline. Again,
Right.
I think that goes back to that psychological DNA that we are made to survive. And I believe the majority of us take any negativity like that and say, you know what, I'm going to show them. And I agree with you. There is something about being, a colored woman that no matter what, it's so funny because I think this happens to women in general, but my husband and I, whenever we're together, somehow he's still Dr. Musielak, but people will call me Delene. And you know,
Oh,
yeah. And I'm sure that happens. I have female physician friends too, and it happens to them. But I'm just like, seriously, because I went to the same medical school. I took my exams. Why am I Jillian? And I don't know. I think it's just society that somehow it's okay to tell women, hey, you know, I'm going to call you Delene and not Dr. Delene.
yeah. In person, my apologies, even getting the name wrong, Delene, like making sure you can pronounce it properly.
Oh, no, it's Delene, like Celine, but with a D. Delene, you've been saying it
Oh, I
right.
thought you said, I thought,
Yeah,
oh,
you're
okay.
saying it right.
Oh my God, I messed up her name. Oh, like, oh no. But you know what? For me, and although I'm not a medical doctor, once I earned a PhD, it was very difficult for me to walk in that 24/7 space. And I found myself in the very beginning telling people, oh, just call me, because people seem to have a very difficult time, saying it. Now, some people did.
Yeah.
I was corrected in such a professional, beautiful way by not only a colleague of mine, but a mentor of mine. And she said, I will call you Dr. Brown every time I see you and in every room. She
Hmm.
said, because little girls and little boys and other women need to see you and know that you're in the room.
Yeah.
Not for you, but for them, as that beacon of hope that, yes, I too can achieve and fill in the blank. I
Yes.
never thought about it that way. And I do recall being in the room, and I worked for the Department of Defense for 16 years, and I was stationed overseas, and I was a school administrator. So we got to go to these round tables with all of your military muckety muck, and we have these once a month meetings. And you can imagine being, number one, a woman, and number two, a woman of color,
Yes.
and being a senior leader on the installation, because I led, one of the schools. And I remember that going around the table, some people that I knew, they would always say, oh, Dr. Brown's here. And they would, introduce me. But I remember the chief of staff, when I was in Bamberg, Germany, anytime he had to address me, he would call me Miss Brown.
Hmm.
Never Dr. Brown. Now, he's never known me as anything but Dr. Brown. But he would always say, Miss Brown. After being in a meeting for 20, 30 minutes, I've gotten up to speak and give a status report. Everybody addresses me as Dr. Brown. But he would always say, Miss Brown. Well, one day, I had enough. The Ruby Louise came out of me. Ruby Louise is my mama. And I remember getting up, and a question was addressed to me, and he said, Miss Brown. And I said, excuse me? I said, that is Dr. Brown. I said, you may call me Mrs. Brown when I'm with my husband. I said, however, I am Dr. Brown here today. And I turned around and kept speaking.
I like it.
And I didn't get belligerent and,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it got to the point I kept saying, why does he do that? And at first I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. But I didn't realize it does. Because it does matter, because now every time I go in a different space, I didn't realize it because I didn't make that unconscious conscious until later, how I was shrinking who I was to fit into a space that somebody else wanted me to be in.
Mm.
And I knew that again, because I was strong and I was articulate. And, when I walk in the room, not that anyone would ever guess this, I tend to kind of give off sparks. That's the best way I could describe it, right?
Yes.
And I didn't know how to dull my shine.
Yeah.
And it was taking a mental and emotional toll on me because I began to question who I was and what my purpose really was in the big scale. Not that, okay, I'm here to, take care of children. I'm here to manage systems and lead teams. I got that. But I just kept saying, well, where does even Dina and Dr. Brown begin and end? And by that time, I was also Xavier's mom, which I love being Xavier's mom. And so showing up as Xavier's mom and I had a conversation with my mom yesterday. And I don't know, because you didn't tell him yet that you have triplets.
Not yet. We didn't get to that part.
Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all, I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you. She has to tell you. We're going to fast forward. Tell us about them, because they are so cute. And I've seen these little pictures, and I can bet that it's just laughing nonstop in that house.
Yes. So we have, I'm going to rewind, because going through with the triplets was something very special. My husband and I, so when you do your training, you can do something called a couples match. You can try to match with your spouse, a best friend, but the two programs that Matt and I did were competitive. So not every hospital has it. And of course, like thousands of people are applying to get into these spots. So unfortunately, Matt and I didn't match at the same hospital. So during our residency training, we were in different states. And after we were finished with our training, I was like ready. I was like, let's go, let's do this, let's get pregnant, let's make a baby. And it was just taking some time. And mind you, as women, when you want something, you're like, yeah, like I want it now. And I remember calling my mom, and I would be in tears. I'd be like, Mom, I'm not getting pregnant. And of course, I was also seeing kids in my practice. So even though I love my kids, I'm like, oh my gosh, like everybody else. And of course, when you're trying to get pregnant, like everybody else is pregnant. You know how that is. Like when you want a new car, you're like, everybody else is driving that car.
Yes.
So we were praying, and we're a firm believer. Every year we give something called our first fruit. So it's extra money that we give. It's separate from our tithes. And I specifically wrote on our check that we were praying for twins. I was like, I am praying for twins. And because we all know as professional women, we put aside our family life. So of course I was already in my 30s, and I'm like, I want some twins, man. And I was also praying because my side and Matt's side, we both have twins that run in our families.
Wow.
So we got the positive pregnancy test, and we go to our appointment. We were exactly 9 weeks when we went for the ultrasound. And, we saw the ultrasound, and both of us, you learn about ultrasounds in school. We're like, look, we think it's 2. And the doctor was like, yes, there's 2. And then he said, hold up.
Oh my God.
He said, there's a third one back here.
Oh my.
So that's how we found out. So we were pregnant with triplets. And
wow.
What's insane, they brought up about us what they call, quote unquote, reducing the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So the boys are identical because they were in the same sac, and baby girl, she's fraternal. She had her own sac, and you can tell because she's got a pound and an inch on the boys. So she was getting all her food through that placenta. She didn't have to share with anybody. But we prayed and we said, God, you put these 3 babies here that if, something's going to happen during the pregnancy, you're in control. We just gave it to God. We said, no, we're not trying to play God, that we're going to see how this pregnancy goes and just pray. And I tell you what, Dr. Dina, we made it to full term, schedule C-section. Overall, no complications. I was on bed rest at the end of the pregnancy, but I never had issues with my blood pressure, sugar. The babies grew well. we went home. Everybody went home at 5 days. And even the nurses at the hospital said that this was the first set of triplets that they'd ever seen, that everybody went home at the same time. And I mean,
Wow.
that's only God. Like, and
I was just saying, look at
it's
God.
just
All I
been a
can think of is look at
blessing.
God. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're a blessing. I mean, they're crazy at times. You know, sometimes there's some screaming, I mean, from us and them. I always try to remind myself, you know, they're only three, so they're three right now. But they're amazing. It's been amazing to watch them grow, and they're best friends. And sometimes when they get upset at each other, they'll threaten each other that I'm not going to be your best friend.
Aww.
So, but it has been such a pleasure to, you know, take care of them. And the Bible says, you know, God never gives you more than you can handle. And I always try to remind myself of that, when sometimes it can get a little like overbearing when they all have a bad day. But overall, I will say they take turns. Everybody always says, "Oh, is one better than the other?" And I'm like, nope, they just take turns.
They switch. They rotate.
Yeah, so they're so much fun. Their names are Luke, Ethan, and Alina. Are their names. So they are tons of fun.
Are they going to get a little brother or sister?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Matt, my husband wants another girl, which I'm sure Alina will probably choke her out if we had another girl, because
Oh,
she
did you
loves
say
her
choke her
daddy.
out?
But the doctors did say the chances of us having multiples again would be super high. So I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see. We'll leave that in the hands of God. He knows how much we can handle.
So how does that, so now, you know, being a mom, being a physician, being Dr. Delene, and balancing and pulling all that together, that's really, you know, like those nuggets that it's like people are going, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. And for a while when people used to ask me that, because my days traditionally were, I was on 24/7, but I pretty much worked about 17 of those hours, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they're saying, how are you being a mom, volunteering? Because for my son, I used to coach his
Mm.
little league teams.
Oh.
And I was the pseudo Cub Scout mom, the den mom. I call pseudo because when they camped outside, I stayed there till those little jokers went to sleep. I then drove home. I woke up at the crack of dawn, and I went back, and I was there when they woke up, because
Yeah.
that wasn't about, I wasn't about that sleep outside life with no bathroom. So so I call it the pseudo Cub Scout den mom, and but I was there for all of that, and it was really important for me to be present in my son's life. It's important for me to be present now in his
Yes.
life, because now he's a senior. He's graduating high
Oh my
school.
goodness. You look so good. I wouldn't even imagine that.
I'm going to be an empty nester.
You know, when you talked about him, like I picture he was like a little kid when you were like, my little Xavier.
Oh my gosh, no, my baby pumpkin is almost 6'2" and like
Oh
450
my
pounds. And
goodness.
he's 17 years old. And like you were like praying for a child. I was like surprised when I was 30 when I got pregnant.
Mm,
And I was like, what am I doing with baby? Like, I'm too young.
yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I'm too young.
You're like, I got all this stuff to check off.
I was, you know, I thought I'd be a mom when I was 40 or 50, you know, in my mind, because I just consider myself always moving. And
Yeah.
I wasn't the friend. Like, I have friends who, like, all they wanted was a baby.
Mhm.
And for me, that wasn't my dream.
Yeah.
And not that I didn't want kids, but I didn't sit around, you know, I love kids, but I never thought about having my own. Now, I will say I come from a family of 9. I'm number
Whew.
7. Okay. And my nieces and my nephews, and I'm number 7. So my siblings are much older than well, not much, but they are, you know, significantly older. And they
Yeah.
were having children who I got to support and take care, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
bunny. So I didn't ever have that absence of. So when my sister was going to school and, you know, it was really that village mentality, I would go and take the bus to her place so she could go to school and go to work. And I would watch my nieces for her, you know. So I was around kids. Maybe so I never thought about that. I was like, I just want to fly and go and be on the go. And but I remember at a time in my life when Xavier, when God gave him to me. And I shared yesterday in the post because I've just been feeling really emotional lately.
Mm.
And, it's the moon and Mars and everything else. But really, it's just like this sense of wonder, I guess, that I
Mm.
have as a mom when I start putting my life in perspective. And I realize what a gift and a treasure. And you weren't at the, let me back up. We tell people how we met. We met as part of the Miss CEO Entrepreneurial Brand Brunch and the panel that we were on together. But the day before when we did the brunch, and I shared with them that, Dr. Brown, Dina, entrepreneur, whatever, my greatest joy is being Xavier's mom.
Mm.
And I didn't really truly understand and have a cognizant understanding of what my purpose was until I became Xavier's mom.
Hmm.
And I was talking with a business partner 2 nights ago, and I said, I know now that I have one purpose, one mission, that is to inspire, empower, and transform lives. And she said, Dina, have you ever thought about spinning that around? Because I talk about embracing the journey and that metamorphic journey that the butterfly has to take in order to walk in its truth. And although everything it ever needed to be the butterfly was there at birth in the egg, but it took the journey to bridge forth, and it took some trials and tribulations on that journey for it to transform. And I said, when I'm working with clients and really speaking with women, because my passion, although I work with teams and organizations, my passion when I founded the Lead Her Shift movement was to shift the way we think about ourselves as women and how we develop and respond as leaders. And it's really about a mindset. And so when I wrote Walking Through Glass, and I started the divine download that it became, and I was talking to people about that, and they go, well, how do you do it? I realized that where we started, it was a mindset shift.
Hmm.
And so I actually published, and I'll release it. I keep saying I'm going to release it next week. It's finished, but I've just been sitting on it because I've done it before. It's such a birth of my baby. I did a 28-day mindset cleanse because to me, it's the prep we need in our step.
Yes.
And as I've been doing this inner work, I'm closing loop, in doing the inner work of understanding who I am and who I am now, today, in the present. And so this colleague, and she was talking, she said, Dina, have you ever thought about starting with transform, inspire, empower? She said, because really when we're talking, it's how everything ties together, right? And
Yes, so true.
And she said, everything that you've ever said to me, it always starts with the transformation of the mind first, because I cannot inspire you to be the best version of yourself and empower you to take the action until you have a transformation that starts with your mindset.
So true.
And people go, you think like that all the time? Yeah, I do. I do. I am very goofy. I'm very all of those things. But I am just a nerd, a fabulous one. And I love, listening to learning new things and really digging deep on how the brain works. I don't want to study it. I don't want to cut it open. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to none of that stuff you do. I don't even want to see what's inside of me. Okay. But the headspace is so amazing for me. And as women, I think that, yes, we're resilient to a certain extent. Yes, we're strong to a certain extent. Yes, there's so many different things that we can accomplish, but there's an underlying truth there. We often don't walk in our truth and an understanding of really, truly who we are until we have a deep understanding and awareness or some sort of catalytic happening that triggers us to evolve into the better version of ourselves. And sadly, some women I know, they don't have that experience. And I want to make sure that not only am I providing opportunities or shows or messaging to say, okay, my sister, what do you need?
Yes.
What can I be
Yeah.
a
Can
catalyst
you
that
help?
helps you
Yes.
see that? And I mean, you being in the medical professional, me being in the headspace space, is
That's
that
right.
I was crying this morning. I'm a little even emotional and crying because one of my good friends shared that a woman that I knew, I didn't know her deeply. I only knew her through my girlfriend. You guys might have seen it on the news. She murdered her 2 boys, killed
Oh.
herself, and burned down the house.
Mm.
And as a mom,
Mm.
as a professional, and she was, I think she might have retired from the army, and as a service member, and her husband is still in the service. What was going on
Yeah.
for you not to just take your life, but your 2 children?
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
that's why I'm so passionate about us not living in a lie and quit saying we're okay when we're not. Quit spending time trying to have a mask on for everybody and saying, you know what? Oh, if it's God's will is for you to thrive, not just to
Yes.
thrive.
Yes.
But he says also to honor that truth and understand and trust in him and sometimes to be still in him. But he doesn't say not to move. He says to be still
Mhm.
in him. And I think that so often we're trying to show everybody that we can do it, that when we get so caught and lost and we find out we're buried and down in some hole and it gets so dark for us that we can't see our way out. And so that memory was kind of wearing on me this morning. And I just thought, what? And so my girlfriend said, I just talked to her not very long ago and she was talking about going back into the workforce because she's retired. And she's like, I just don't get it. I can't process this. So when I'm thinking of this balancing act of losing ourselves, trying to find ourselves, identifying and connecting with others who are going to inspire us to be the very best version of ourselves, what does it take? What do we need? What is that trick? What is that tip? What is um, that secret sauce that helps you, being the mom of triplets, thriving through all of these experiences, the school, the rigor. And I know that you're one brilliant doctor, an amazing diva, but let no one mistake the hard work you put in
Mm.
doing your journey, the sleepless nights, the opportunities where you had to say, no, I can't go.
Yeah.
The
So true.
sacrifices that you had to make to get to where you are now. And more important, the sacrifices you felt you had to make to prove a point. What is it? What is that advice that if there's one piece to give our listeners, a woman out there or man, okay, you're listening to, you should listen to women, but this show is really about speaking into the hearts and the souls and breathing life into women. What is that? What would you tell them?
I think it all goes back to in that mom with her 2 sons is such a perfect example is just honesty. I think
Mhm.
one big thing is just honesty in general, being honest with yourself and knowing your limitations and being honest with other people. And, one big thing that people talk about now is finding your tribe. And
Yes.
I think it's hard. I think the majority of women are very jealous and competitive and don't support you. But even if there's one person in your tribe that you can go to who can support you, stick close to that person. And an example I'll use, just as a physician, let's say I go in with a patient. I had a medical student ask me about this the other day. She asked me, do you get anxious before you go into a room? Like, how do you know they're not going to ask you a question and you don't know? And what if you can't, think of what the diagnosis is? And I told you, I never stopped to think about that, but I told her, I laughed and I said, no, I don't get anxious. And I said, because you know what? If I don't know it, I'm just honest with them. And I just say like, hey, I'm going to have to read up about this a little bit, because you know what, no matter who you are, whether you're a physician, a researcher, a lawyer, you do not know everything. And there will be things that you have to look up. And what I found is patients are more respectful of the fact that you were honest with them, and they feel that, oh, she's taking time out to like research what's going on with me. And I think the same thing as a mom, you just need to be honest. Like, I know a lot of times you don't want to ask your husband or your boyfriend to help, because you're like, well, I've been always washing the clothes. I've been always washing the dishes. You know what? If you need help, say like, hey, can you drop the kids to school today? Like I would love to sleep in. And I think you would be surprised that if you ask for help or if you're honest, people would be open to it, because people would be like, I don't even know how you've been doing it this long and you're only asking now for help.
Right. That's hard. I mean,
So I think that we try, and I agree with you, we all try to put on this facade. I always laugh. I can't remember who it was, but it was a physician, one of my teachers in medical school, who said, we have a tendency when people say like, hey, how are you doing? We always say good, and how are you?
mm-hmm.
And he said sometimes it's just good, because he was saying in medical school it's just so stressful. Stop saying you're good, because I know you're all stressed out.
Right.
And he's like, it's okay to see somebody and be like, hey, yesterday I had a hard day. Like the kids would not go to bed. I didn't get to bed until like an hour later. It's okay to tell them that your day didn't go well. It's all right, because everybody's going to have that day. So, it's so sad to hear about that mom. And I didn't hear about that story, but a lot of those stories go back to like some sort of mental instability, whether that's depression or anxiety or, loneliness or grief or something just from her childhood. You never even know what happened during her
Yes.
childhood that could, still just, those demons that are still harassing her up to now.
No, they are. They're those phantom limbs, and when
Exactly.
when you're having those experiences, and something that you had said, and two things I wanted to address. One is that I hear often that the majority of women are jealous of other women. They don't like to help or support other women. I don't believe that to be true. I don't think it's a majority. I think it's a high profile minority. And then the others have been bushwhacked into believing that that's the status quo. I mean, it's like, I do. I've heard that so much. And I'm like, well, the people that I'm meeting,
Yeah.
the women that I'm connecting to, and I have a real good spirit of discernment because I don't connect to everybody. And some people I love them from a distance, is that many of them are afraid to trust, believe, and to support because they've heard, again, as a man thinketh, so he shall be, but also what you're hearing. So be cautious who's pouring into your ears.
Yes.
And that if you've heard this since you've been a child or growing up, you're repeating this over and over, and it becomes part of your psychological DNA. And so you keep saying this, but is that how you are? So if this isn't who you are, then why is it so easy to believe and to accept that this is how the majority of other women are? That might be a whole nother show. I mean, like that, I've heard that. And I've heard speakers get up. I'm going to a women's conference. I often don't really go to many women's conferences anymore. Okay. Because it's not about the what are we going to do there? Are we going to talk about action items we want to do?
Yeah.
Or, or do we just kind of want to lament on the trials and tribulations of our lives? So
Yeah.
it has to be about action. But I have heard number of speakers get up, especially women speakers, and they will say, as I'm building my tribe, you guys are all here, I love y'all. And usually women don't work together. Who says? Then why are all these women here then? If that's true,
Mm-hmm.
you see what I
So
mean? Like,
true.
and so that dichotomy that exists, that's me in my
Mm.
nerd space, because I'm always kind of
I
questioning
love it.
races. Because I'm saying, is it a lie we bought, or is it the truth? So I don't say that anymore. I used to say the same thing. And I don't say that anymore because guess who then I begin to attract? Narcissistic individuals.
Mm.
So I speak to the fact that I am, number one, I'm open. I love me so much that it allows me to love you as you are, who you are, etc. As long as you're not toxic. And if you're toxic, you can be toxic by yourself over to the side. And I'm still keep doing me and loving on me.
Yeah.
And so because I have shifted my language, my thought, my actions, and when I'm telling you, this last 2 years, it has been a journey, okay? And I started to intentionally and consciously call myself to the carpet for
Yeah.
things that were, like, okay, I'm gonna need you to stop right now. And this is how I talk to myself when I'm talking to myself. I'm gonna say, okay, where does that come from? Is this something you heard? Is it because your mom said that? And where did she get it from? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Mm. So true.
And so that's kind of that other piece. And I realized that
Mm.
when I met you, and even like the text, you're like, hey, I'm having lunch. What you doing? Okay, I'm gonna come. You see what I'm saying? But if the
Yes.
majority of women were narcissistic vampires, yeah, I didn't make
Yeah.
that up. I mean, I make up stuff too. Mary J. Blige says I can too. Then that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be you.
And I think part of that too is what's important, kind of going back to like asking and saying something, because you never know. Like if I'm in the corner and I'm like, oh, I see her over there and she's so cool, but I'm not going to talk to her because she's probably way too cool for me. And, but look how we connected. And I'm like, you're so sweet. Like I love your charisma and just, when you speak, I love listening to you. Then I'm like, she's amazing and she inspires me. But you never know unless you talk to somebody. And yeah, I'm sure there's some women there who will say, hey, you're not even good enough for me to talk to. But you're right. The majority of women are probably like, hey, let me take you under my wing. I've done this. Why reinvent the wheel? Because I'll let you know how I did it.
Right. And some people are just shy. And so
True.
many people who are brilliant and who people don't realize that Beyonce actually is an introvert.
Mm.
That's why she has what she says. Sasha Fierce is the one that's on stage usually. and she's an introvert. And I tell people I'm an ambivert. When I'm out, I'm out. But because people pull a lot of my energy, when I'm done, I'm shut. I'm on the locked and shut in, honey. Y'all be praying for me, sending me meals, because. But I know what God called me to do, and so I have to get out of my own way.
Yes.
And I'll sit there. Sometimes my favorite place is to be in the corner watching people. And people used to think that, oh, she's standing up. No, I'm just watching people.
Yeah.
I'm loving that. But if someone, they go, oh my gosh, or like you nailed it. People would assume, which is why in the beginning I didn't want to tell people that I had a PhD or I'm Dr. Brown, because then they start giving me airs that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So that's why and there's no cure, there's no answer, and it just takes time. So here's what I said I could do. I was like, no, I'm like, we're going to like go on like for forever in 15 days.
I know.
Dr. Mom's going to have to come back. But here's what I do. So I always like to end the show with, okay, here's my one thing that is that one thing that I chose to do to make sure that on this journey, in this balancing act and pulling it all together, to make it work. Okay. My one thing is I'm going to love myself on purpose with purpose. And I'm going to love me first. Because when I chose to love myself first, it allowed me to give from my overflow to everybody else. And so I wasn't seeking balance. I was seeking harmony amongst everything that I had going on. Sometimes things are out of balance. That is the nature of things. But when I actually focus on being harmonic and being in harmony, it meant that, okay, I worked 20 hours yesterday working on something. So, I'm going to sleep in today. I'm going to pick and journal and pencil myself in first, a date with me. Yes, I make dates with myself. And I put it on the calendar. No, I don't want you going with me. No, I'm not calling Boo Boo Twan and Shamila. I ain't calling nobody. I'm going to make a date with me. I might take myself out to dinner, happy hour, go sit on the beach. It's just me being with me. And when I started to pour into myself, then when I'm in the giving mode and I'm in the helping mode, I don't feel like I shortchange myself. Because I don't know if this ever happened to you, but it's happened to me. Oh man, I done did all this for them and they going on. I ain't done nothing for myself. I don't say that.
Yeah.
I do for me first. So that means I can support you abundantly. I feel full, and I had to take charge of that by choosing myself first. That's what I do.
Yes. And that's so true, because unless you're happy and content with what you do and your purpose, that's not what you'll reflect to others. You can't help others until you help yourself first.
Oh, Lord, child. Yes. Yes. So what's your one thing? All right. So as we wrap up, what's your one thing?
So my one thing, as far as just my purpose and juggling everything, would be, my huge thing is prayer. Just taking that time to sit. And that goes back to what you said. That is just alone time that you take, because one, that gives me time to meditate and be in a quiet place and get all my thoughts together, in addition to just cry out for help. Like, I need help. This is what I need help with. Or if something was unfair, to say this was unfair. So that's the one thing. It's funny. I was in 2018, the local newspaper, we were living in Georgia, one of the editors approached me and she said, "We would love to write an article about you." They have this cool magazine called Moments. And after she interviewed me, she named it Triple Threat. And Dr. Musielak, she put Dr. Musielak does it all with prayer and a planner. And it's so true.
I love it.
And it's so, so true. And I think, whatever the case may be, whatever higher being you believe in, I think it says a lot just when you take some time to sit there and, meditate and reflect. Because if we don't take time to reflect on things we've done or mistakes that we've made, that won't help us in the future. That won't help us to correct it or make things better or to improve or to go to a higher level. So it is important. I know a lot of time as women and as moms, we get caught up because you're on like go, 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 go mode. But it's just good to take time to reflect, to say, why did that happen? Or why did that go wrong? What can I do different the next time? Or how can I improve this? So I think that's also important.
Yeah, you're right. I calendar, like, I love that prayer and a planner, because I actually do two things. I start my morning with prayer and meditation every morning, and it's in my calendar. It's like an alarm. And then I have a midday mindfulness moment. And so I just calendared 10 minutes in the middle of the day for me to reflect on being present and grateful.
I love it.
And it's on my calendar. I planned it. And so that's that part of, I needed this so that I could be the best version of me for those who I'm called to serve. And that's I guess that's the beauty of it. So, oh my God, this has just been such an amazing.
It has
It was
been.
almost like an hour. I told you, I'm like,
it was so easy. That went by so fast.
It went by so fast. But I definitely want to make sure that all of our listeners get a chance of how do they connect with you? How do they follow you, learn more about Dr. Mom?
So for sure, you can learn more about me and what I do on my website. That's www.delenemusielak.com. That's my name, DeleneMusielak.com. In addition, you can feel free to email me. I love getting emails. My email is drmomshow@gmail.com. That's drmomshow@gmail.com. I love getting any comments about topics you want me to cover on the show. I don't give any medical advice per se. It's just it's an informational show. So I really enjoy talking about different topics. So if you have any topics you want me to cover, I'd love to do that. I also offer parent coaching. I've really enjoyed that because that helps me to mix me being a physician with helping parents live healthy in a busy lifestyle, but in addition to helping you with parenting too. So living up to your parenting skills, but doing it in a healthy way. So if you want to connect about that, but I'm so excited. So definitely shoot me an email. Check me out on my website. And Dr. Dina and I'll have to plan this trip, this Dr. Mom.
You think I'm joking. You think I'm joking. We're going to have a Dr. Mom's Club getaway.
I like it.
It's not like a reboot. It's purely just to go and be with other women who just want to, and just when I say have a good time, it's kind of me. I call it doing self-care. I don't want to talk about self-care. I want to do it. So don't talk about what I should be doing. Let's go get in it. And so
I like it.
Doing self-care getaway. And, you definitely can continue to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Dina Speaks, DrDeena Speaks. And listening to Walking Through Glass, the podcast, which are available on iTunes, Google Music Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and of course our host Podbean. But really the biggest gift is for you to share, because we had an engaging, amazing conversation. And I know the things that we're talking about and we had a chance to speak to, that somebody else also has been through, going through, and probably needs to know that, hey, sister, you're not by yourself. So definitely feel free to share on all your platforms. And I don't know, with that, we just have to say until the next time, and look out for more information on the self-care, Selfish Mom Retreat.
Dr. Mom Show. Vacay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.